What's up, real ones? Welcome to Let's View It. I'm your marvelous host, Tyrone Cross, and for you guys that watch many of my videos, you know my videos can touch on different topics and sometimes, yes, even be educational. And that's what this one is. It's educational. And with that, I got a question for you guys. Have you ever seen Them? There's 2 seasons now, but season 1 has nothing to do with season 2, but the stories have the same premises. There's basically a huge racial overtone or undertone, maybe even a midtone, but definitely some racial tone, but also combined with some paranormal, demonic, spiritual type stuff. It's considered a horror, but this video is gonna focus on season 1. Season 1 was about the first black family to move into an all-white suburbs known as Compton in 1953. And if you're like me and you remember Compton as being NWA, it's an actual fact that in the 50s, Compton was actually all white, just like it is now. So depending on how young you are, believe it or not, Compton used to be black. But now let me get back to what I was talking about. In season 1, it's about the first black family to move into all white Compton in 1953. And across the street, there is an evil white lady that just hates this family. And she is the #1 villain. She is played by Allison Pill, aka the blonde lady with a very punchable face. But basically, she can't stop harassing this black family and starts rallying up the neighborhood to turn against him, which is obviously easy to do in 1953. So Miss Punchable Face starts leading the way of the neighborhood, just harassing the crap out of this black family. They will mob up and protest on their lawn, destroy their property. This family had to go through it. And all this was being led by Miss Punchable Face. But apparently, this whole story is based off an actual true event, off an actual black family. But one of the main differences is this happened in Lewistown, Pennsylvania. It happened when the Myers family, who happened to be black, tried to move into Lewistown, which was an all-white community. It was an all-white suburbs. And obviously it was that way on purpose. And as you can imagine, this community put the Myers family through it. They put that family through absolute hell. And the Myers family ended up staying in Lewistown for 4 years. And the crazy part is there's actual video clips of interviews of the Lewistown citizens talking about the Myers family and how they feel about them moving into the community. And the crazy part are these interviews are taking place while all the harassment is happening. And you won't believe what they say about the Myers family. Or maybe you will. So you already know. Let's view it.
And we understood that it was going to be all white, and we were very happy to buy a home here.
How about your children? Have you talked with them about the Myers?
We have tried to keep the discussions away from the children. I feel that it's something that we adults should solve without bringing the children into it any more than we have to. We're doing it for the children, but I don't feel that they are old enough to understand the problem as it is.
That's crazy that they think a black family moving into the community is a problem that the adults need to solve for the children. That's just some warped ass thinking.
Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any number.
Can you give a basis for that judgment?
That's unbelievable to believe that the property value will go down if they're to move in any number. 1 is a number. Could you imagine being so racist that you think if one person from that race moves into your community, it's all downhill from there? Or should it be taken as a compliment that you think a race is that powerful?
Yes, we used to live in Washington, D.C., and we saw a very good example of that there.
The Myers family is close to the Lewistown norm. They have 3 small children, the youngest only 1 month old. Myers served for 2.5 years in the Army and was discharged as a staff sergeant. He works as a laboratory technician and is studying for a degree as an electrical engineer. His wife, Daisy, is a college graduate. The Myers home is modestly furnished, and their late model family car was bought on time. They are very close to the Levittown norm, except in one respect. William Myers, Jr. and his family are Negroes in an all-white community. What other objections, aside from the effect on property values, do you have against the Myers?
The whole thing centers around the word integration. Well, as Mr. Myers said, because his home has been anything but peaceful since he moved in. He's got 3 children, and evidently he feels that they will be accepted socially. And I don't feel that they ever will be. But the whole trouble with this integration business is that in the end, it probably will end up with mixing socially. And you will have, well, I think their aim is mixed marriages and becoming equal with the whites. But the only way they're going to do that is by education and by bettering themselves, not by pushing in the way they have here.
What? What does she mean, I think their goal is mixed marriages? What does she mean by there? Is she talking about black people in general or just the Myers family? She really believes the Myers family moved there to get mixed marriages? How is that even possible? Just because a black family moves around white people, doesn't the white woman have to agree to the marriage? And at that point, shouldn't she be mad at the other white woman? For that lady to sit there and talk about education and bettering someone's self, she sure is ignorant and stupid. How is she gonna say the way black people or the Myers family is gonna get ahead is by education and bettering themselves, not by pushing themselves here? Isn't the way the Myers family can afford the same house you can and the same car that you can, possibly even better, is by educating himself and bettering himself? Or does she expect him to educate himself and better himself but stay in the hood or the ghetto? How does that make sense? He obviously already educated and bettered himself, but now you don't want him to reap the benefits of his success. And by the way, you're a horrible example of what happens when you get education and better yourself. You make me want to drop my kids out of school.
Do you intend to move?
At the time, no. It's a pretty impossible situation. We have our home here, and if the colored move in and run real estate values down, there are a lot of us, the GIs particularly, who are going to be more or less stuck with their homes.
What has been the effect of the Myers coming here?
Well, it's created a great deal of tension, not among the neighbors, because we all feel the same. But it's naturally made everyone tense in their home. I mean, this is affecting our homes, and it's bound to create tension. It's the subject that's talked about all the time.
But there are others who are for the Myers?
Yes, I've read about them.
For what reason, do you think, do they support the Myers?
Yes, I've heard about them. Like they're some mythical creature.
Frankly, I don't know what reasons they can have for it. If there are homeowners in Levittown, I don't see what reasons they can have for it.
Do you think Myers will be able to live here comfortably?
Comfortably? No.
What course of action are you going to follow?
I'll do what I can to help to get them out legally and peacefully. And as far as accepting them socially, if that's what you mean, I could never do that.
Has this affected your relationship with neighbors?
No, we've discussed it freely. We found people for and against, but we've tried to keep it being discussed. That was the important thing.
No, we speak about it freely. There are people that are for and against. But the main thing, the most important part, is that we don't let it go.
Have you heard any rumors?
Many. I won't repeat them because I don't like to repeat rumors, and I don't think it's fair to keep them alive.
Do you think other Negro families will come to Levittown?
Definitely.
Yes.
What do you think will happen?
Well, just what's happening already. I don't know. It's a rumor I read in the paper where they have 2 colored school teachers now in Levittown. So that's just a good example. of what is going to happen.
Well, what's wrong with that?
I do not like it. I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and if there's too many colored people around here, I definitely will get out. I'm not thinking I don't want her associating with colored people.
Well, I'm very definitely against mixed marriages, and that's eventually what it's going to come to. If children are raised together, they're not going to think of anything of marrying together.
Oh, no!
Even with eerie, scary background music, that wouldn't sound scary.
Well, I'm very definitely against mixed marriages, and that's eventually what it's going to come to. If children are raised together, they're not going to think of anything of marrying together.
See?
Well, I just could not live beside them. I don't feel that they should be oppressed. But I moved here. One of the main reasons was because it was a white community. And that's the only place I intend to live. If I have to leave Levittown, I will do so.
Well, I first read a small article in the newspaper that the first colored family had moved into this community. And following that, why I began to hear on the radio and read in the newspaper that there was some disturbance around this home that these people had bought.
What was your initial reaction?
I was terribly shocked to find that there were people in this community who would be so violently opposed to it. I rather thought that everyone would just accept it as I would.
Was the community prepared in any way for the entrance of the first Negro family into all-white Levittown?
Well, there was an attempt by a group of ministers who formed a group called the Human Relations Council, and they were just getting started on their work. I don't know how they expected to ultimately accomplish the purpose of educating everyone, but I know that they had an open forum one time, and just within the last 3 or 4 months, and the results of it were published in the paper.
Do you feel it was effective?
No, I'm afraid it was just a drop in the bucket. Not very many people even read or were aware of the article or of the meeting that preceded it.
In my business, whoever's got money and has good credit or wants to pay cash can buy a car. It has no discrimination, color, religion, or any type of that sort.
Has the coming of the Myers affected your home life?
Personally, my home life, it hasn't affected nothing whatsoever. But on the neighbors, they have a right, because the average white person living in Levittown has 4 and 5 children. Well, let's put it this way. If the Levittown is migrated in hordes of Negroes, which they have a right to come here, but if something that happens that way, pretty soon my neighbor will be having a Negro son-in-law or a daughter-in-law. How would that look?
Wasn't
Probably what your wife wished you looked like?
Myers within his rights as a citizen to move wherever he pleased?
Well, let's put it this way. Mr. Myers and all the Negroes have a right. I'm no better than them. They're as good as I am. They can go anywhere they want. I mean, they have a God-given rights, and being a good American, they have the rights to the civil rights. They have the right to pursue their happiness. But by the same token, we have mixed communities, and it's a proven fact that those mixed communities are over a third empty. He could have stayed there. He had a beautiful home there. The only reason that Mr. Myers came into Levittown is to show people they could get here. It wasn't that he wanted to come to Levittown, but my personal opinion is this. There is something bigger behind this.
Is that your personal opinion only, or is it a fact?
No, I say it's a fact, and I would tell anybody.
So I would like to point out, obviously, there were whites that were on the Myers side, and then, of course, was probably the majority of the community wanted the Myers out. They were just racist and wanted them out. But the most important fact is that there were white people that supported them. We have to acknowledge that, because that's the most powerful part. And that's always the most powerful part in most civil movements that's never talked about. Now I went a little further and looked up a little article about the whole Levittown and the Myers family situation. And the headline reads, Trailblazers, the story of the Myers family in Levittown, Pennsylvania. Now down here it reads, I'm not going to read it word for word, I'm just going to summarize it real quick, but it basically says, after World War II ended in 1945, when the vets returned, housing was expensive and very limited. And that started to change in 1947 when William Levitt created a planned suburban community which he called Levittown. Now, the first original Levittown was in Long Island, New York, but then there were 7 other Levittown put up throughout the country, one of them being in Pennsylvania. And the Levittown in Pennsylvania is where the Myers family moved into. And like we already discussed, these Levittowns were all white neighborhoods. They were segregated. When these houses were first put up, there were housing agreements, and they included policies barring anyone but individuals from the Caucasian race from living there. Notably, the federal government played a key role in perpetuating this discrimination, as the Federal Housing Administration and the Veterans Administration only subsidize, why can't I say that word? Subsidize post-war housing like Levittowns on the condition that the homes weren't sold to African Americans. So even the federal government didn't want these homes sold to African Americans. And remember, this was late 1940 something into the 50s. And probably the 60s. As more and more families began purchasing homes in the original Levittown in Long Island, it rapidly became the largest segregated community in the United States, with not one African American residing among a community of 70,000 people in 1953. There are people still alive that were born in 1953. Notably, while Levittown's management refused to directly sell homes to African Americans, they could not prohibit private owners from selling to African American buyers. This is how William and Daisy Myers obtained their home in the second Levittown in the United States in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, buying it from a previous owner who had decided to relocate to Philadelphia. Now, this is where the harassment begins when they move in. When they moved into their new residence, the Myers had no dreams of becoming leaders in the civil rights movement, and no idea that Daisy would one day be called the Rosa Parks of the North. However, after enduring almost immediate harassment and intimidation from many members of the community, the Myers knew they would have to take a stand. Almost right after the Levittowners discovered that the Myers had moved in, a crowd gathered outside their residence to protest their presence in the community and threatened the family with violence. The paper painted a detailed picture of the threats and intimidation the Myers endured on what was just the first of many days of demonstrations outside their home. So this is them painting the picture of what was happening. Small groups of agitated Levittowners are already gathering in front of the Myers' home. Throughout the evening, the crowd continues to grow. By midnight, more than 200 shouting men, women, and children cluster on the Myers' front lawn. Could you imagine 200 people yelling at your family and threatening your family on your front lawn? 200 people? 200 people! I don't even know 200 people. I can barely get 200 views and likes. But they got 200 strangers just standing on their lawn, yelling at them, cussing at them, threatening them. That's crazy. That's a lot to deal with. A group of teens throw rocks through the Myers' front picture window, and 15 Bristol Township police are dispatched to the scene. Soon the county sheriff arrives and orders the crowd to disperse. By 12:30 a.m., 2 adults and 3 teens have been arrested. Now with the violence increasing, the sheriff wires the Pennsylvania State Police asking for immediate assistance. His request states, "The citizens of Levittown are out of control." The paper added that these demonstrations, which involved gatherings of up to 500 people sometimes, continued outside the Myers family home for many days. At one point, a group of Levittowners formed a Levittown Betterment Community, a group dedicated to trying to find ways to evict the Myers and once again make Levittown a community solely comprised of white families, according to the Philadelphia Jewish blah 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 blah. Can I say Jewish? The group met in a house near the Myers called the Confederate House, which flew the Confederate flag and broadcasted Dixie endless from the record play. I'm not sure what Dixie is, but if you know, comment below! Eventually, after interference by local police and state troopers, and following widespread national media coverage, the protests outside the Myers home stopped. The Myers remained in Levittown, bravely defying those that ousted them. Now they stayed for 4 years and then ended up moving to Philadelphia because apparently Mr. Myers got a new job. At least that's what the story is. Who knows if that's true? Maybe it just didn't get peaceful enough. But maybe he just got a new job. But the reason why I wanted to share this story with you guys is because I feel it's important. Understanding is very important. And understanding that understanding doesn't mean you agree is also very important. You can understand something and not agree with it, but understand it. And once you understand something, progress can be made. And what I mean by that, here's an example. People who think, I don't get why racism is still around. I don't get why people are racist. I don't get why people feel they experience racism. People who think like that usually have an argument that goes like this.
I didn't own a slave and you weren't a slave, so why does any of this matter?
And the reason why they say that is because they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed to think that once slavery was over, everything was hunky-dory. And the fact is, what happened after the slaves got released is the most important and crucial part to why we are where we are right now. And that's why schools don't cover it. That's why schools don't cover a large part of American history when blacks were freed as slaves all the way through the Jim Crow era. Most people don't even know what Jim Crow is. They just heard the word Jim Crow and know it's something about racism. And that's it. But that era is the same era that the Myers family thing happened. And that happened in the 50s, which means people that lived in that time, lived in that community, can still be alive to this day. But not only that, their kids are definitely still alive to this day. And their kids could possibly have the same brainwash passed on to them. And these type of situations with black people and black families was very common. And if you know that was happening in the 50s and the 60s, well, doesn't it make more sense why racist stuff happens to this day? Because those racist people and their offspring are still here. So when you see a black family like the Myers who try to move out the ghetto or the hood and move into a nice white suburb, look how they were treated. When they wanted to better themselves, look who was stopping them. So if you're one of those people who just sit back and say black communities are the way they are because that's just the way black people are, it's probably because you haven't heard of stories like this. And there's many different variations. Not all of them have to do with housing. But I thought this story was crazy and I think it's important. It has a lot to do with the molding of America. It has a lot to do with American history and how we were. But I want to point out the most important part, and that is the white people that were supporting the Myers. This message is to everyone, but especially black people who say,
all white people are racist.
Let's get one thing understood. Black people would never make no civil progress if it wasn't for white people that stood up for us. And that's just a fact. It's common sense. If white people are making all the laws and policies that are against us, and we can't do anything about it but bitch about it until another group of white people come along and say, you know what? It's not right, and let's change this. Yes, black people can use their voices and protest and make a scene and put the message out there, but it always takes a white person somewhere that's on our side to make actual change. And this has been true throughout all of our civil rights, throughout Martin Luther King or anything else that's happened. Rosa Parks, there's always been white people supporting them, and they are the ones responsible for the change in the end of the day. If it was only black people supporting civil rights, well, we still wouldn't have no civil rights. But school brainwashes us and they don't talk about the white heroes that actually helped us get over the mountain. Otherwise, we would just keep going up a mountain. And I think that's just a very important fact that everybody needs to understand. Everybody needs to understand that. It's very important for different reasons. It's important to show that black people didn't gain power without white assistance, and it's important to show that not all white people are racist, because if they were, we would still be slaves.
Ta-da!
But now that you know Them Season 1 was based on a real-life black family, all I need you guys to do is comment below. Tell me what you think. Did you see them? Are you gonna see them now? They're actually pretty good. They're pretty creepy. But also, do you think Alicia Pill has a very punchable face? But while you're telling me your thoughts, I'm also gonna need you to hit that bell like the hunchback, Also click that hit checker button and sub ride with me. And I'll see you on the next trip. Day and night.
Keep it real, keep it real, keep it real.
All my life.
Keep it real, keep it real, keep it real.
Can't help
Keep it real, keep it real, keep it real.
That's why
Keep it real, keep it real, keep it real.